Welcome back. I'm Jose Miranda. This is Hispanic Speak Out TV, brought to you each week on Bright House Channel 49, starting at 9 o'clock. Our first show is EDU TV, which is the education show, followed by Hispanic Speak Out, and followed by Latino Role Models, which means at the end of the show, stay tuned for Latino Role Models. Tonight, we're going to talk about education, we're going to talk about politics, especially about the island of Puerto Rico. For those Latinos out here, and there are many of us that are Puerto Rican, this is a very special and important aspect of what's going on in the island and how it affects us. Joining me tonight from my far right is Anthony Suarez, who is the president of the Puerto Rican Bar Association. I'm gonna have to read this, boys and girls, so just make sure I don't mess up. And Marie Mason, vice president of the Puerto Rican Bar Association in Central Florida, the law firm of
Hernandez, Hicks, and Valois.
Okay, and then followed by Isa Camacho. Elsa Camacho. Sorry, Elsa. I apologize. And your firm is
Kaufman England.
And of course, Tony Suarez
from the Suarez Law Group.
That's Law Group. So welcome everyone. I appreciate you taking the time out. I've known some of you a long time. Some of you I just met, but it was wonderful meeting you guys and having this conversation about what's going on. So let's get right to the mix. You're having a moot court, and please explain what a moot court is.
Well, let me take it from there. Moot court is a competition among law schools and law students that allows them to practice their skills. These are law students who want to become litigators, who want to be able to practice in a courtroom. So what the Puerto Rican Bar Association Florida has undertaken, now we're entering our 4th year of doing, is having a moot court competition with schools from around the country. We've had over 12 major universities already participate in this competition in order to have law students compete at a moot court, but different than other moot courts, because this moot court competition concentrates on the constitutional problems of Puerto Rico. So it gives an opportunity for people who don't know anything about Puerto Rico or the constitutional issues of its status, an opportunity to learn, to litigate, and over a period of time. And Puerto Rico has been a territorial status for 117 years. So it even takes us a couple of years more to educate the rest of the public and Americans who have the right to vote. Remember, Puerto Ricans don't vote, cannot vote, don't have any representatives in Congress. They can't fix their own problems. We have to fix it here in the mainland. And so we have undertaken the task of educating the new crop of lawyers and people coming in as to the problems of Puerto Rico. That is what moot court and what our moot court competition is about.
Okay. Well, let me throw out this out to the ladies. It has been said that women don't need to vote, basically, or get involved with the political aspects of things. And so here we are in a place where people of the island are not allowed to vote. What do you think about that?
Well, that's a double question, right? But as to the first part, obviously, the feminist movement has accomplished so much for women, not just in the United States, but worldwide, but specifically in the United States, and as it affects Puerto Rican women. I don't agree with the idea that women shouldn't be allowed to vote, obviously. That's one of the most important rights that we got, or that our predecessors obtained for women. And so as it affects the Puerto Rican community, we have to take it even a step further. And what we try to do with the moot court competition is bring attention to the issue that Puerto Ricans as a whole, obviously women included, have a right to vote for the commander-in-chief, regardless of where they live, whether they choose to live in the island or live in the continental U.S., because we are U.S. citizens by birth. And that is a constitutional issue that is in nowhere land, sort of in limbo, because it hasn't been addressed properly by Congress. And that's why we want to bring attention to the public in general. Everybody in the public is invited to attend and listen to the moot court competition, participate in, educate themselves in the process. And that's what we're trying to accomplish, so that the law students that will become the future attorneys and the future judges in the state of Florida and throughout the U.S. Will be able to bring special attention to that when they are in a position of power. But also, by inviting the community at large, we want them to be aware of the fact that, yes, voting is important for women and for Puerto Ricans as a whole, and that everybody should definitely be involved in any type of event that highlights the voting rights and the importance of that.
Okay. Also, people will say from the mainland, why should I even bother? This is a little island with a handful of people. Why should we be concerned whether the island gets a right to vote or not? What difference?
Well, as a Puerto Rican, we should be concerned because our roots are tied to that island. I mean, that is where we came from, and we as people, we're still seen as Puerto Ricans on the mainland as well. So I mean, it goes to the essence of fighting for for what's right, both as being a Puerto Rican and being a U.S. citizen. I mean, why shouldn't they be entitled to the same rights? They are essentially, as Marie pointed out, they are U.S. citizens.
Right.
And if we don't fight for them, then
Who will?
who will?
Who will? Okay. Well, some argue that there are more Puerto Ricans here on the mainland than there are on the island. If that's so, haven't a bunch of us here already assimilated, and are we more concerned about our cultural identity or at the actual voting?
Well, Jose, if you're addressing that question, man, that's a loaded question. That's about 4 or 5 questions all at once.
Okay. I understand. Well, pick your poison.
But let's put it this way. Yes, there are now more Puerto Ricans in the mainland than there are on the island.
Okay.
Part of that can be attributed to the fact that on the island, due to its status, due to its inability to fully control its future, either as a state or as an independent nation, the population is strangled economically, and therefore they find that the only solution is to emigrate. Now, that's fine for the people who emigrate, but perhaps the states to which they're moving to are not necessarily in a position to need all those people. Florida now is home to nearly 1 million Puerto Ricans. Now, luckily, it has not strained the Florida economy, because actually Florida has been growing as an economy and accepted. But this is going on throughout. It is strangling Puerto Rico because it's losing its doctors and its lawyers and its engineers, and they're all being exported because there's no jobs on the island. So it's a combination. Without having the ability to control their future, because it is literally a territory totally controlled by Congress, even their citizenship can be taken away from them, because a citizenship is not a 14th Amendment citizenship. It is a citizenship established by statute, and any Congress that establishes a statute another Congress can take it away. So even their citizenship is subject to being taken away. And so Puerto Rico is in a very, I consider, unconstitutional and definitely unbalanced position. And so a combination of factors has led to the current crisis in Puerto Rico now. For example, the Medicaid problem, where they're underfunded, about 40% less than any other state. And so where if you think the doctors are complaining about Medicaid reimbursement rates here in the United States, imagine in Puerto Rico, where they're getting about 58% of what Medicaid doctors are getting here. They have no pediatricians there. All the doctors leave the island. So it's a combination of problems, which I believe, and remember, Puerto Ricans, because they have no congressmen, they have no senators, right, and they have no vote, can't solve it. The only ones that can solve it are us who are here, and that includes you, even if you're not Puerto Rican. You're an American citizen, and you have the access to your congressmen and your senators. You have much more power over the future of Puerto Ricans than Puerto Ricans do. And so this is what we're doing, and this is why it's important.
It seemed that you brought it up as well, the island and the amount of Latinos here, the Puerto Ricans here. There seems still to be a disconnect between the island and here. So by granting them the ability to vote, how does that save the island?
Go ahead, Maria, answer that.
There's an educational process that has to be involved in the political process of allowing Puerto Ricans to vote for the commander-in-chief.
Okay.
And when you go to the island, you do see that people are much more politically involved, and everybody, I would dare to say, upwards of 90% has a chosen party affiliation, whether it's an independent party or whether it's the 3 main parties in the island. Almost everybody has an affiliation, so it's not a matter of local Puerto Ricans not being involved in the political process. They do know, and they are involved. But they will have to probably educate themselves a little bit more as to the consequences of having the congressional influence that vote gives populations such as Floridians or North Carolinians.
Right.
Anybody that lives in the continental U.S. has the ability to vote somebody that will work for them. And once they understand that and the importance that that would have, as to have a vote to say, hey, somebody that's going to be there fighting for us and how the economy will affect us, I think it's going to be enlightening and obviously will make a difference, and people will probably appreciate the right
So you're saying it's going to enhance the island, basically, you're saying?
It probably will have that effect if that is in fact what Puerto Ricans want to do. Because again, it's a complicated question and a complicated issue. Puerto Rico has been in the state of not being able to decide what they want to do, and the status quo has always been what the majority of the island has selected to do. They want to remain a commonwealth versus becoming a state versus becoming an independent country politically. So the issue of the status can't be separated from the issue of, do you want to have more civil rights in the sense of being able to vote for the commander-in-chief and, all of the other consequences of having that.
Right.
Let me interject here one thing.
Okay.
Under the rules of the United States Senate, one senator who puts up a veto causes what? A filibuster.
Right.
One senator. So if Puerto Rico gets 2 senators, the entire $100 billion or $1 trillion budget of the United States is stopped.
Right.
And so therefore that gives tremendous power, political power, to the island of Puerto Rico's over budget and the future of the island. So therefore, to answer your question, be able to elect one senator gives tremendous power.
Okay. Elsa, moot court and lawyers, are you attracting these young lawyers to be involved in this so that they actually are learning to speak for the island?
Yes, that's something we're trying to accomplish. I mean, that is the point of the moot court, is to get all these young lawyers involved, future lawyers, current lawyers, senior lawyers, to go ahead and give more exposure to the issue in Puerto Rico.
And
I mean, that is the purpose of our moot court, which has expanded.
Right. Are you getting a lot of people being interested, or you feel people like, still the island, blase kind of attitudes? What are you perceiving?
It's both. I mean, it's a process. Some are interested, some you have to gain their interest, and that's why we're here speaking today, and that's why we're working on moot court. A lot of mainlanders obviously don't know about the issues in Puerto Rico.
No.
But once it's discussed, they become motivated, they become involved. So it's just, it's getting that little fire under them so that they can go ahead.
And that's one of the other reasons, right? And that's one of the reasons I wanted you guys here, because I think the fire is there, but it's low. Simmering in a pot of rice or something like that. So you want more, and so that's why it's important for us to continue and kick up.
It's simmering because of the lack of exposure, the lack of information, and that,
But I think people find lawyers. I'm sorry, forgive me. They find lawyers somewhat boring sometimes, and so how do you kick it up to the layperson so they can also participate?
That's an activism. I find lawyers to be very exciting and sexy.
No, I didn't mean looks. I just meant.
But we're in the essence of things. I mean, your question of simmering. Listen, we're in the middle of this controversy over the Confederate flag.
Yeah.
That took how many years? It's been 170 years since the revolution, and the Civil War, and we're still now finding the end of that. Puerto Rico has been a colony of the United States, a territory, for 117 years. It may take, several more years, but continuing conversations like this, continuing engagements like this, hopefully we'll get to the day when the United States says we cannot have colonies anymore. It was okay in 1898, is not okay today.
We got a minute left. Tell us about the Bar Association and what you're doing for the Puerto Rican Bar Association.
Listen, we urge those of you who are interested in the law, you don't have to be a lawyer to be a member of the Puerto Rican Bar, but if you're interested in the issue and you want to get our emails, please go to our website at www.prbaflorida.org. prbaflorida.org will get you all the information. You can join. We have a lot of things. We do comedy nights, and we do political salsa, where we invite politicians and get them involved. And
happy hours too.
And we have happy hours too.
Absolutely.
All right, guys, we have to wrap it up on that note. Thank you so much for you all coming in and hanging out with me. Appreciate it.
Thanks for
Thank
inviting
you.
us.
Thank you.
Are you proud to be Hispanic? Hispanics in Florida now have the first Hispanic car license plate in the United States. Be a proud Hispanic.
Put the Hispanic plate on your car.
I want to be a doctor.
I want to be a scientist.
I want to be an engineer. I want to be a police officer. I want to be a professional dancer.
By getting the Hispanic plate for your car,
you will support scholarships and community programs.
Call now or visit HispanicAchievers.org.
Welcome back. I'm Jose Miranda. This is Hispanic Speak Out TV, brought to you each Tuesday night on Bright House Channel 49, starting at 9:30. Of course, you know we have several shows on the network now. We have EDU TV with Mr. Perkins that starts at 9 o'clock, and that's our education show. You got to tune into that because it's super. And of course, we come next, and then following us is Latina Role Models, which we try to bring out the best and brightest and those people that are changing the world and changing things around here for us. And that's being brought to you by Ms. Rivera, Sandra Rivera, and of course we also have our other host, which is Alma Otero. And both young ladies interview these women to bring you the best and the brightest that we have. Tonight I'm going to talk, we're going to talk about law enforcement. And I have a dear friend that I've known for a number of years, although he's ignored me for quite some time, but we're not talking about that right this moment. I'm being joined by Bob Hansell, the sheriff, the chief sheriff, the chief of police of Osceola County. Sir, thank you so much for coming.
Thanks for having me.
You have what I would consider a very well-run department. I think that in the years that I've been with you and talked to you about things, you have a balanced department. You encourage officers to be part of that department in every way possible so that you can have an overall working thing with the community, and you strive on the community. First of all, how do you go about communicating with the community about policing, because policing is so hard?
Well, first of all, thanks for the kudos there. I have a great group of people that work for me, almost 700 individuals that work hard no matter what their assignment is at the sheriff's office. But we follow a pattern of trying to make sure that we mesh with the community that we work for, that we serve them, and that is broadcast from the top to the bottom, that we're there to serve the community and the visitors who visit our county, and to give them the best possible law enforcement service that we have. And we do that many ways. We reach out with things such as Crime Watch. We have several programs that reach out there, whether it's our Teen Driver Challenge, our SMART course, which is a motorcycle safety course, our defensive course for women 16 to whenever, however old they are. Mm-hmm. Through our Citizens Academy, we have a basic academy and an advanced academy every year. So we're constantly trying to get the community involved with the sheriff's office, and they really like to come out and be involved. And I think overall that is part of the solution of how we're trying to drive the crime rates down, which overall throughout the United States has been going down. There's some pockets that have problems. But I think community involvement in relationships with your law enforcement agency that you deal with help drive that down.
According to FDLE, your department specifically has reduced crime overall. How do you account for that success?
Well, I think it's innovative policing through the use of intelligence and how we analyze that intelligence that we get. We have a very robust intelligence unit that goes out there and tries to map trends and tries to find the bad guys out there, and we address those bad guys as we go through our day. I think it's training. We try to. I don't think there's a such thing as overtrained, but we try to make sure that our people are, whatever their assignment is, are trained to their utmost abilities, and that in turn reflects in their ability to serve.
Right.
And then there's a combination of things. I think that our response, our citizens' involvement, things outside of our, a very, very hard stance on if you do the crime, you do the time type thing. Where if bad guys are put away, they can't hurt or reoffend.
Sure.
So I think there's a whole lot of parts of this success that we're seeing, Central Florida's seeing, and throughout the United States is seeing.
You're a former captain of SWAT team.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
We all know that SWAT teams are not necessarily invited to the picnic. Okay, you come in to safeguard a situation to the best of your abilities. How has that training come forth to you being the chief of police?
Well, before I was elected sheriff, I was a captain with the sheriff's office. And part of my assignment was to be the high-risk incident commander for the sheriff's office. That included the SWAT team, and when that team is utilized or brought into a situation, it's pretty much, reached a point where there's nothing else you can do. We've tried all alternatives to solve the situation, and they brought in, and so that helps in your decision making because it's usually a critical time, and you have to make the right decisions because it's a timely decision. It has to be made. Plus, you come to realize what resources are available to you at that critical time that you can utilize throughout the situation to solve the problem that you're trying to solve. So it gave me a strong background, especially in decision-making process.
You also have a program where you encourage your officers to go to community events, and you encourage them to continue their education as well.
Absolutely.
How did you develop that?
Well, we know that nobody's ever really satisfied with the status of in their lifetime, especially in their working period of their lifetime. So we encourage them to continue their education, whether it's through in-house training or outside courses. We offer we offer funding for that purpose. That we offer the pay them back for funds they spend on college or training outside of the agency. We also encourage them to be involved in other things, between Special Olympics, being involved in our community, coming out, and when we have every year we have a Community Appreciation Day, and we just kind of open everything up to the community, to the sheriff's office, and every one of our units is out there telling people what they do because they're really proud of what they do.
Sure.
They want to brag on whether it's a guy that runs the boats or the canine officers or the helicopters or whatever. They're very proud of their assignments, so they want to explain to the citizens who pay their salary and finance us what we do and how we do it, and it turns out to be a great symbiotic relationship with the community and us.
Okay. How are you doing on recruiting of minorities, specifically Latinos and stuff? Well,
we look at every recruit that comes through. We go to every police academy because we only hire those that are certified in the state of Florida. Okay. Sometimes we have scholarships where we put people through the academy based on how our budget looks for that year. But we go into there and we try to find the best and the brightest. And to be honest with you, it's kind of hard sometimes to find minorities that are wanting to be police officers or wanting to be law enforcement officers or deputy sheriffs. So we try to encourage people to apply and recruit, both by going and visit the academies, both by reaching out online or in the paper sometimes, especially on some of the support elements. We're in a great need of communications operators. Okay. It's a hard job, and they kind of rotate out a lot. So we're in a great need for those, especially bilingual communication officers. So we go and we put out news releases, and we go to colleges, and we try to recruit them to come to work with us, and we. Because it's very competitive. Yeah. I mean, we're 700 strong at the sheriff's office, but Orange County is I think 20 2,500, I think.
Yeah.
They're total agency. So we're all competing for the same pool of employees or the same candidates for employees. So it gets kind of tough. But we really reach out hard, especially to the minority, because we have grown so diverse in our county since I've been there all my life.
Absolutely.
And the change is phenomenal.
Okay.
You could probably write some type of master thesis on it.
Yes, you can.
But how fast it changed. So so we're trying to get out there and be very proactive in that recruiting process.
Okay. Switching a little bit, we've had Ferguson, we've had Baltimore, we've had police officers shooting people in the back that otherwise probably would have gotten away with something if a camera wasn't there. Going forward, when you look at your agency, your 700 cops, how do you train, how do you direct so that they don't have that same oops or that slip up?
Well, I think it's, number one, like I said before, we're very proactive on training. But one thing I tell every person that when I sit down with them before we swear them in, I tell them my philosophy. And I said 95% of the people in the community, all they want to do is earn a living, raise their kids,
right,
send them to decent schools, and just have a great relationship with their family and their community. There's 5% out there that want to do they want to be the knotheads, the ones that want to cause trouble. Yeah. And the hardest part of our job is not treating the 95 like the 5.
Right.
And it's hard, a lot of times it's wisdom and tenure on the job that you kind of learn who the knothead is and who's not. But when you get a brand new officer out there, that's a difficult situation for him not to be a little apprehensive of everybody he contacts when we're looking at things, especially if they're responding to a crime that may have resulted from violence and everything. So they're high on guard. So we try to train them to react responsibly, react within statute, react within policy and procedures. And if they just follow those guidelines, they'll be fine.
How do you go about teaching an officer, and we were talking off camera about this, how do you go about teaching an officer how to talk? Because I think that's 90% of the sin that goes on there. It's the approach. And why is it so negative all the time with police officers? Whether they're seasoned or not, somehow they picked up this really bad habit. How do we train officers to engage in a conversation?
Well, it starts for us, that training, how to treat people like you would want to be treated. I gave a little speak at the Law Enforcement Memorial, and I said sometimes you have to be humble enough to know that you, a law enforcement officer, is no better than the person that you're talking to. Yeah. You've just been granted authority. That's the only thing different. You're authority by the state to enforce laws. So it starts on our hiring process. We start with psychologicals. We start with written testing. We start with review boards to see how a person, number one, reacts under pressure. You've been through many a review board throughout your law enforcement. You know how stressful they can be. And usually people that are excel in those areas are, number one, confident in what they say, and they're very structured on how they react. And then we go through a very robust field training program, and it's for 14 weeks where they're with a seasoned officer, and if they under any kind of stressful conditions, they're monitored and evaluated, and those negative points of theirs may come out in that field training process, and that could be an issue. If it's an issue we can correct, we'll correct it. If it's an issue we can't correct, how they talk to people, how they handle people, we send them down the road, because we can't ruin the trust we have with the community. By now, do mistakes happen? Absolutely. These things happen because everybody's human being. But if you like I said, if you hire wisely and you train wisely, you can cut those chances a lot. So,
on that note, we're going to come to the end of this segment, but I appreciate you coming in. There is so much more that I want to talk to you, so I want you to come back so that we can have this conversation, okay? Not 5 more years passing, all right?
All right.
I'm Jose Miranda. This has been Hispanic Speak on TV. We'll see you again same time, same channel next week, okay? See you soon.